How's it everyone, Grant here, welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be unboxing the Moto Z2 Play, which was just released here in the United States yesterday, June 29th, as a Verizon wireless exclusive. So just like last year, the Moto Z, the Moto Z Force, and Moto Z Play were all Verizon exclusives for 2 to 3 months before the unlocked versions came out. And so there is an unlocked version of the Z2 Play that is expected to come out at the end of summer, but it's expected to cost an extra $100. And this Verizon version of the Z2 Play is already $408 to buy outright. So the unlocked version should be around $500 plus, which probably won't be worth it for a lot of people considering what this phone is offering, and the fact that there's other unlocked options like the OnePlus 5 that offer better specs and are available for as low as $480. Now it's available directly through Verizon Wireless, Best Buy, and Motorola.com. Like I said, for $408 to buy outright. Verizon will lease it to you for $15 a month for 24 months. If you buy it through Best Buy, I believe Best Buy is offering another $50 off the phone if you activate it and lease it through Verizon. So that could be another option to save a few bucks there. And if you go to Motorola.com, you add the phone to your cart and you just wait for a few minutes, Motorola will pop up a 5% off discount, and that's about $20. So you can get it for about $387.60 before taxes with free shipping direct from Motorola if you want to save a few bucks that way. So I'll just quickly unbox the phone, then we can talk specs and compare it to the Moto Z, Z Play, as well as try on the Moto mods to make sure that they all work. So here you can see the box, nice red box with a soft touch matte finish. You've got your Verizon branding on the sides, Moto Z2 there. And if you want to pause it and read the back, you can. So we'll just pull off the sleeve here. And so it's a little bit different packaging. Instead of the pull top box, you've got now all the same markings on the inside box, but it's a slide out box, which is a nice change of pace here. It's actually pretty nice. Put that right there. So you've got the phone front and center. We'll just lift it out here. And the one thing that they changed this year is that it's an all aluminum back now. It used to be a glass back. I actually like metal phones, so I'm actually liking this change. And at first glance, it looks really nice. I like this kind of gunmetal aluminum finish right there. Verizon branding. We'll take a closer look at the phone a little bit later, but let's just finish the box. So you've got your Hello Moto here, and this is going to contain, I'm guessing, paperwork. Let's just take a look to make sure. So there you've got your quick start guide. So for those people who like quick start guides, there you go. You've got your safety information that I'm sure you're going to read. And you've got a SIM ejection tool, which is a little bit different. Usually Motorola includes these nice little ejection tools there that are nice and easy with that grip. But you've got a little generic SIM ejection tool there. And then all you have is your standard Motorola Turbo Power charging brick and what should be a Type-C cable. And you can hopefully see that right there. And it's nice that Motorola included this as a standard two-piece where you can actually detach the cable from the charging adapter, because Motorola used to include those adapters with their turbochargers that had a cable that was permanently attached, and that wasn't as convenient. So something minor, but nice that they did that. The one thing I'm not seeing here is a style shell. So Motorola used to include free style shell covers like these in the boxes. You don't get that free here this year. So now let's take a quick look around the phone. You've got that 5.5-inch 1080p Super AMOLED display front and center. Seems to be the same display as on last year's Z Play, but it's great that they kept it Super AMOLED. Last year's Z Play, even at 1080p, because it was Super AMOLED, looked very nice. You've got a dual-tone LED flash, which is new up top. You've got an earpiece above the Moto logo, and your front-facing 5-megapixel camera at f/2.0 aperture. You've got a fingerprint scanner at the bottom, and they've moved to this more ovalish fingerprint design, just like on the G5 Plus, moving away from that more squarish and smaller touch target that people didn't really like last year. On the bottom, you have your USB Type-C, and you do have your 3.5mm headphone jack, which was there on the Z Play, but not on the rest of the Z lineup. So it's nice that they kept that on the Z2 Play here. On the side, you've got nothing. Up top, we have the SIM tray along with the micro SD card slot, your antenna line there, a secondary microphone here. And on the right hand side, you've got your volume up and down button as well as your textured power button. These were kind of placed a little bit high last year and they're kind of small, but they've kind of kept that design. And of course on the back, like I said earlier, it's a all aluminum back instead of that glass back, which I really do like. I think it gives it a really nice look. I do like aluminum over glass anyway as a personal preference. You still have the Moto logo. It's not a dimple, so it's not recessed in any way. It's just your standard Motorola logo. And you have what appears to be the same rear-facing camera as on the Moto G5 Plus, 12 megapixels at a very wide f/1.7 aperture. It's got phase detection, laser autofocus, and a dual-tone LED flash. It does not have optical image stabilization, nor does it have electronic image stabilization, so you're not going to have any stabilization on this rear or front facing camera, but it should be taking some pretty good pictures just like the Moto G5 Plus. You've got Verizon branding there and your Moto Mod pins down here, standard just like last year. And so this very much looks like the Moto Z Play and Moto Z phones of last year. In fact, it looks exactly pretty much like a Moto Z from last year, except with a aluminum back. I'm assuming they had to keep this design because Moto was promising backwards compatibility with their Moto Mods for at least 2 years, I believe. So they didn't really have much of a choice in the design that they went with. They just decided to slim down the Moto Z2 Play here to about 1 millimeter thinner than the Moto Z from last year. And because of this, people are complaining that they took away 1 millimeter, but in doing so, they had to remove about 500 milliamps of battery. So this has a 3000 milliamp hour battery versus the 3510 on the Z Play from last year. And although even I would like to see that extra battery life here on the Z2 Play, it has the same size battery capacity, 3000 milliamp hours as the Moto G5 Plus. The Moto G5 Plus had the Snapdragon 625. This has the Snapdragon 626. And I was getting 7 hours plus of screen on time on the G5 Plus. So I expect to get about the same here on the Z2 Play. Last year's Z Play I was getting about 8 to 9 hours, and that was a legitimate 2-day battery life for me. So if I get 7+ hours here on the Z2 Play, that should be enough for a 2-day battery life for me, but I'm going to be testing that out and let you know how the battery life is. And lastly, as for the processing specs, like I said, this has a Snapdragon 626, which of course is the newer version of the Snapdragon 625. It's supposed to have all the power and efficiency benefits of the 625, except Qualcomm says you should expect about a 10% performance improvement in the 626. So it should perform on par and a little bit better than the 625, but I doubt you'll notice. It's also got up to 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of storage. This is the 3 gig of RAM and 32 gig of storage version. Everybody right now in the US, whether it's Verizon, Best Buy, or even Motorola.com, they all only have the 3 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of storage version. I don't know of anywhere that has the 4 gig, 64 gig version, at least in the US. Best Buy's advertising the 64 gig version, but they don't have it. I bought mine at Best Buy and all they had was the 32 gig version. So it was definitely an error on Best Buy's website that I believe they should be correcting. So I'm not sure if they're gonna offer it in the 4 gig, 64 gig version here on Verizon or not at some point. So I'm guessing that at least the unlocked version will have that option. So with all of that, let's go ahead and fire it up and see if it has any kind of power. Show you the boot up animation and we'll go through the setup.
Hello, Moto.
So I believe this phone comes with a Verizon Sim pre-installed, so I'm going to take that out because I don't want it to try to start any kind of an activation or anything. So there's a Verizon Sim. Now I'll go through the setup process. So now let's set up our fingerprints. I'll show you this in real time so you can see how fast this is. Just let me enter a pin here. We'll go and set it up. So really fast there. We'll just go ahead and set up a few more. So there you go. Fast and painless to set up some fingerprints. And there you go. Now we're into the home screen. So here you can see, like most Motorola phones or all Motorola phones, it's very much stock Android. You can see the Pixel style launcher here. And if we go here into About, Settings, all of this is stock Android. Motorola does a great job of having stock Android. So if you like stock Android, you like minimalism, you're going to like the Moto phones. And of course, they're going to add some of their little Moto features on top of it. But it's already running Android 7.1.1 out of the box with the May security patch. We can check out storage. So you can see 13.12 gigabytes out of 32 used up out of the box. And we can just check through the settings real quick, see if there's anything special here. Looks to be all pretty much stock Android. Display settings, adaptive brightness. You can choose your color modes here, standard or vibrant. This is all pretty much standard. You can choose your display size, font size. So I usually like to run mine in small, but we'll set all that stuff up a little bit later. And the only thing that looks like they add here is Moto Mods. So this is our Moto Mod software, and this is where you can do Moto Mod updates, software updates. But other than that, that looks to be about it, pretty much all stock. And if we come back here, you can see performance is pretty smooth and fast and fluid like you would expect with stock Android and Motorola phones. You can go into the Modal App here. And you got your Modal Actions, your twist to wake your camera. You got Modal Display, so the ambient display. And Modal Voice settings, so all the standard Modal features, yes, I'm in. And so let's see what actions are on by default. So you've got your chop twice to activate your flashlight. On standard, chop twice to turn it off. Twist to capture, so twist to turn on your camera is on by default. So flick of the wrist and there goes your camera. So and lastly, approach for Modal Display, reach for your device to trigger Modal Display. So I'm not sure if this has the wave feature. So usually if you wave over the device, it'll activate that ambient display. Other Moto phones don't have the proximity sensor, so you would have to actually pick up your device for it to activate the display. Notifications will definitely trigger it, but let's take a quick look and see. So I'll turn it off, put it down. And usually when notifications will come in, you'll see the screen pulse with a notification. That should still work here. But if I wave my hand over it, okay, there you go. So it does have the wave your hand over to activate the display with that proximity sensor. There it goes again. So that is there here on the Moto Z2 Play. I like that feature. I actually like the Modal Display over the always-on displays from companies like LG or Samsung. I don't like having it always on, but if I just wave it over, I like being able to glance at it, so that's very nice there. And other feature here, you have one button navigation, so that's to use this fingerprint sensor instead of the on-screen buttons in navigation. So it also has swipe to shrink the screen, swipe down in any direction to make the screen smaller in one-handed use, so I can turn that on. If you tap on it, it'll show you how, so it's from the center to the left side or center to the right side, it looks like, yep. And so we can try that. So if I tap and drag, there you go, you can tap anywhere outside to bring it back, tap and drag, and there you go. So you really have to drag it to the edge of the corner, I think, because yeah, if you just do this, it won't really register. So if you tap and all the way drag it, then it'll register. So if you're having a hard time, just make sure to go all the way down to the end of the corner of the phone there. You've also got pick up to stop ringing. So if I turn this on and the phone rings, I can pick it up to make it stop. I have flip or do not disturb. So if it rings, I can turn it over and stop the ringer. So a lot of useful features there for Moto. I just turned them all on. And lastly, let's go take a look at what the pre-installed apps look like. So if we swipe up for our app drawer there, we can try to turn down the brightness a little bit. And let's see what we have on here. You've got Android Pay, Android Wear. So of course you can have all your Google stuff. You've got some Verizon bloatware with Caller ID Cloud, Message Plus, all your Google apps, Duo, Messages, all that stuff. It also includes NFL Mobile, like Verizon usually likes to include, voicemail, VZ Navigator. So all that stuff is some bloatware, but not too much, just your usual Verizon bloatware, all your Google apps. And let's go here into apps and see if we can disable some of this stuff. Try VZ Navigator. So you can't uninstall it, you can disable it. See what else is on here. NFL Mobile. Yeah, so these are not uninstallable, but you can disable them at least. So if you don't use Verizon, you don't want this stuff on there, you can go ahead through and disable the bloatware. Unfortunately, you cannot uninstall it. And the rest of it is just pretty much just Google style apps. So it's pretty much stock apps. You do have an FM radio, so this has an FM radio built in, so that's nice as well. And lastly, we can fire up the camera app again. Do not save location. Reminds you about twist to capture, so it still has a QR code scanning built in. And here are the settings, so we can disable shutter sound. Quick capture is already there. Photo sizes already on the highest resolution, 12 megapixels at 4:3 aspect. And that's pretty much all for your settings there. You can do turn off the flash. It does have auto HDR there. And let's go through some other settings here. You've got a Pro mode, which should have your manual settings, white balance, ISO, all that to play with. You've also got slow motion settings, panorama, video, and photo. So let's take a look at video real quick. And with video, there we go. You can record up to 4K at 30 frames per second. It does have 60 frames per second for 1080p recording. So that's nice. We'll keep it there. We'll go back to photo. Let's see if we can snap a quick picture here. So quick shutter speed. I'll try to take a look at that. Got it. So a little blurry actually, not the best, but not bad. Let's go try it again. Let's try tap to focus. Maybe that was it. Snap the photo. See if that came out any better. Yeah, so that's a lot clearer. So maybe I just didn't tap to focus. So no stabilization built in hardware or software. So even though it has a wide f/1.7 aperture, low light still may not turn out that great, but the G5 photos, G5 Plus photos came out pretty good. I'm expecting that this has the same rear-facing camera. So as usual, I'll do my usual camera samples tests. Let me know if you want to see this camera up against any other cameras in the comment section below, and I'll try to do some of those videos for you as well. And really quickly here, I can bring in some of the other phones. Like here's the Moto Z Play from last year for a quick size comparison there. So pretty much the same size there. You can see differences, not a whole lot. I think if we look up top here, you can see that the speaker on this one was kind of had a more of a ridge texture, a bump. It's kind of stuck out. This year they kind of recessed it in like a normal phone. On the bottom, of course, the fingerprint scanners are different. Last year you had this very small square touch target that a lot of people didn't like, but I didn't mind it because it's a very ridged feeling, so it has that raised ridges on the sides of that, and so I could easily feel for it. It was a small target, but I could easily feel for it, and it was very responsive. They've changed that off to this more oval shape, traditional oval shape, like you see on the G5 Plus and some other phones. Although it is still smaller than maybe a Samsung fingerprint scanner, even though it's oval, but that's another change there. Otherwise, pretty much looks the same if you just glanced at it. From the side is where they changed it, so how big is that millimeter difference? There you go. So 7 millimeters, I believe, on the Z Play, 6 millimeters on the Z2 Play, and it is very noticeable. And last year, you know, a millimeter may not make a difference to people, but if I just felt it, I always thought the Z Play felt kind of chunky because they don't really taper the sides, and so it's just a big, or around the back for that matter. So it's just a very big square, and so even 7 millimeters doesn't sound very thick. It actually felt kind of chunky in the hand to me, and so shaving off that millimeter here to this really nice thin profile. It's almost as thin as the Moto Z, which I'll show you. It actually feels better in the hand. So even though it's pretty much the same dimensions, if you look at it, same height, pretty much, same width, you know, that extra millimeter of thinness actually does make it feel a lot better in the hand. Plus, if you're going to put on any kind of moto mods, it'll make it a little bit thinner in profile. Put on a case, it'll make it feel a little bit thinner as well. So there is how it stacks up against the Z Play from last year. All the ports are pretty much in the same locations. You can see the buttons are all there the same. So just that extra millimeter of thinness, I think it does make a difference. It does definitely feel better in the hand to me. And of course, here we have the Z, the regular Z from last year. This is in white, but pretty much the same size here as well. If you see, same height, same width, but here's how it compares to the Z from last year. So the Z2 Play, noticeably thicker. I think it's point something millimeters thicker, but still looks very thin. Of course, all the ports and everything line up, except they changed the SIM card tray to the opposite sides there. Bottom is pretty much the same. Of course, the Z never had the headphone jack, and all the buttons are there on the side. So that is the Moto Z. If you want to, you can compare it to the Z G5 Plus from this year. So the G5 Plus is a 5.2-inch display versus 5.5 here on the Z2 Play, but it's still similar design. There you can see the same fingerprint scanners on the bottom. Z2 Play is going to be thinner. Micro USB versus Type-C. Both have headphone jacks. And there you see on the G5 Plus more of a traditional volume rocker, and there's your power button. Pretty much the same on the top, except you have that antenna band up top there on the Z2 Play. So quick comparison there against the Moto G5 Plus. So there you go, that's my unboxing of the Moto Z2 Play Verizon variant, but as you saw, it is GSM unlocked and can be used on AT&T and T-Mobile networks. Let me know if you want to see a video with more in-depth comparisons to something like last year's Z Play. I think the Z2 Play is a very interesting proposition for what price you're going to pay for that. It doesn't seem to offer too much more over the Z Play from last year. You've pretty much got the same processor, pretty much it's the same memory. You've got a better camera in the Z2 Play, but you do lose some of that battery, 500 milliamps off the Z Play. And I can also throw in a comparison with the Moto G5 Plus if you're interested. This is also where the Z2 Play is very interesting too, because the G5 Plus from this year is significantly cheaper. The highest end model that has 4 gigs and 64 gigs of storage is $300 direct from Motorola. You can get the Amazon Prime version for 200 something, maybe 240 or 260, something like that. And it offers a lot of the same specs as well as the Z2 Play. You've got pretty much the same processor, same memory options, same camera even, maybe a slightly better front-facing camera here on the Z2 Play, and the exact same battery capacity. You're just going to have a larger, better-looking display on the Z2 Play. So the Z2 Play definitely borrows from both the G5 Plus and the Z Play of last year. It's a little bit better in some areas than the two, but it's also put a little bit worse in some of the specs between those two. So it's an interesting choice to put out the Z2 Play. I think from Motorola, it's not really sure where it fits in. So if you want to see a more in-depth coverage between these three phones, let me know. And as always, thanks for watching.